You're listening to The Bloodline with LLS. We'll be joined by experts who will help us understand current issues and resources available to those diagnosed with blood cancer.
Holidays and, those things mean so much more now than they did prior to cancer entering our lives.
This may potentially be a cure for some patients.
We'll also be speaking with patients and caregivers who will share their cancer journey with us to better understand life after diagnosis and let you know you're not alone.
Beforehand, my job was to earn a living for my family. My wife said to me, your job now is to live. And that's what I'm doing. I'm living my life the way I want to live it, and I'm really enjoying it. It's a much more fulfilling life.
Let's get started.
Welcome to The Bloodline with LLS. I'm Elissa. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode. Today, we will be speaking to Rashad Hayes, who is diagnosed with follicular lymphoma in 2016 when he was 22 years old and in college. He has had several rounds of treatment and is currently in remission today. Since his diagnosis, he has become a motivational speaker, transforming his challenges into a powerful message of hope and perseverance. He developed the innovative C.A.K.E methodology, which is a unique approach to embracing life's challenges. While he maintains a busy life as an inspirational leader, Rashad is also currently pursuing his doctoral degree in community health from the University of Alabama, Birmingham. Welcome, Rashad.
Hey, how are you?
Doing good. So you were diagnosed with follicular lymphoma in 2016. Tell us about how you were diagnosed. Were there signs or symptoms that made you want to see a doctor?
Yes, ma'am. I will tell you, just like every young adult, I thought I was invincible. I was a football athlete in the best shape of my life. I didn't have a PCP at the time. And one day I noticed that I was waking up in night sweats, and I didn't think much about it because I thought that was just stress. College student trying to figure out how I'm going to pay rent and just dealing with life's problems. But it wasn't until I went to use the restroom that I noticed that I was having trouble using the restroom and that I saw blood, and it freaked me out. And immediately I did what most people would do, and I called my mom. She was my go-to. And so I called my mom and I'm like, hey, mom, something is wrong. I didn't think cancer, right? The first thing she said was go to the emergency room. Even when she said it, I wasn't nervous. I was just like, all right, whatever. I'm going to go. They're going to give me some medicine. Maybe I ate too much macaroni and cheese and maybe it's just constipation or something. Who knows? Mm-hmm. And so I go to this emergency room with a sense of arrogance in a way, because again, I'm in the best shape of my life. I remember going into the room, and as I'm laying down in the room, one doctor walks in and he has to do some tests. And then he tells me, hey, we're going to do a PET scan. And so I'm like, okay, didn't really know what that was, but I was like, whatever, you are the professionals. I'm just following you. And so I remember sitting on that table for about what seems like forever, listening to a sound of this voice telling me to breathe in, hold your breath, breathe out. And as I thought about it, I'm not thinking of the worst thing ever. I'm just getting these tests done so I can go back to normal. And so they rolled me back to my room. And unfortunately, instead of one doctor, I saw two. Now, when I saw two doctors walk in the room, I knew something was wrong. And I remember him saying, hey, your stomach lit up like a Christmas tree. And so I'm thinking to myself, I didn't need any Christmas lights. So what are you talking about? As we going through this process, he tells me, hey, we need to admit you. Here I am admitted for about a week. And I remember the first time I saw the words oncology, it was on the wall. And so I started Googling what's oncology. And at that time, I learned it was the study of cancer. And I will be honest, I was still in denial because how was it that I was dealing with this? I did everything right. I took care of my body. And now here we are dealing with this diagnosis. I had a couple of biopsies, and that's what led the journey. It started just from a night sweat. Low appetite. But again, I thought it was just stress. I would have never thought it was cancer. And that's where my journey began.
Wow. So when they brought you into oncology, had they said anything about the potential of being cancer? Or were they just like, hey, we need to go do some further tests and you need to talk to this other doctor?
Yes, that's exactly what it was. It wasn't like, oh, hey, you have cancer. This is what we're going to do. It was more like, hey, we need to do additional tests. And so when they said that, I never thought cancer was an option. I just thought it was just something as a formality. I thought doctors was just doing what they're supposed to do and just going through a checklist. And unfortunately, it ended up being cancer.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned that you were an athlete in college when you were diagnosed. What was that like being diagnosed during that time in your life? And how did your family take the news?
It was probably one of the toughest times. And here's why. Before I transferred to UAB, where I got my undergrad degree, I was actually on a scholarship at Benedict College in Columbia, South Carolina. And so I gave up that scholarship to transfer to UAB. And the goal was to go D1. I believed in my talents and I was going to the NFL. Everybody says that, right? But I was going to the NFL. And I remember when I transferred to UAB, I went from a scholarship athlete to a walk-on. So I had to start working to pay bills and really earn my opportunity to play the game I loved. I started hearing rumors that the team was going to get cut. And so I was like, okay, I guess I'll never play football again because I'm not going to allow this to happen to me. So I stopped playing. And unfortunately, the team gets cut. And what I now realize is that that was really the blessing that saved my life. Because if I would have kept playing football, I don't think I would have been here. Because, in football, we're taught to push through. We're taught to keep going. I had already just came to the grips of saying, hey, I would never play football again. And so I'm getting into this normal of being a student, still in top shape. So I'm still taking care of myself. And it was just like when cancer happened, it was like my life just really changed. Like I already had to adjust one time. Now you're telling me I got to adjust again. That was the toughest part. I go from being the best shape of my life to now I'm fighting for my life. And that was probably the moment I realized that I'm struggling with this. Again, I did everything right. I took care of my body. I did the extra workouts. And yet I'm now fighting something I can't see, something that's inside of me. And it wasn't as simple as getting the surgery. It was my blood. I struggled with that and I was very depressed. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I was suicidal. I went through RCHOP. I started losing my hair. I noticed I wasn't gaining weight. I didn't know my eyebrows would fall out, right? And so when my eyebrows started falling out, that's where I lost it. I'm going to be honest. I was cool with a bald head. But when my eyebrows started falling out, it was almost like, what is happening? And I found myself depressed and suicidal. And one day I decided, you know what? Hey, I'm just going to tell my story on Facebook. And this was back in 2016. And it goes viral. And I'm like, okay, y'all are weird. Why is this going viral? And I discovered that people saw me as a symbol of strength, but I didn't want to be strong. I was crying out for help. And so as far as my family, because of how I grew up, I was trying to protect them. I wasn't always honest with them. They didn't know I was suicidal. They didn't know I was depressed. I just kept hiding behind a smile. And I wanted them to know it was okay because in my mind, I knew they had already went through so much and I didn't want to be the burden. I didn't want to be that one thing that took them over the edge. So I sacrificed myself in order to be there for them. I know it sounds crazy, like, dude, you're the one going through it. But I think many patients go through that. We don't want to become a burden to somebody else.
Yeah.
And that's really what I did. And honestly, it wasn't until about 2 years ago that I've been able to show them like, hey, I'm okay. Mentally, I'm okay. Physically, I'm okay. But it took some time because I cared so much about them. And I didn't want this to hurt them as much as it was hurting me.
Yeah, that's tough. I think that probably a lot of people listening, particularly young adults, can relate to that. Dealing with these emotional challenges can be so difficult, but it is so hard to open yourself up and feel like you're burdening your loved ones with that information when they want to see you be positive, right? They want to see you be strong and just get through this. And it's hard.
One thing I realized is that this journey taught me that strength is not what I thought it was. It's not about holding it in. It's about what you allow to come out.
Yeah, absolutely. So now that you have been diagnosed in 2016, could you tell us about the treatments that you've had since that time?
So I know, like I said, I started off with RCHOP. That was fun, but I did what I had to do. Until this day, I still deal with the side effects from RCHOP, but I'm happy to be here. So I always tell people it's just a little battle scar.
So what side effects?
So dealing with bleeding gums, sometimes I deal with neuropathy where I can be holding something and I just drop it. It's frustrating because I was a football player. I played safety and wide receiver. My hands were my best attributes. Like I could catch anything. And to be able to know now that if I hold something for too long, it'll just drop, it gets frustrating. Or if I'm walking and I'm tripping over myself, again, you go from being an athlete to now you're like, dude, do I got two left feet? Like, what's going on? And so I really struggled with that. However, I'm grateful because I know I'm still here. And since then, I was told that if I ever have symptoms again or become symptomatic, I would only have to do Rituxan. The last time I did that was back in 2021. I had to do 4 cycles of it. And ever since then, that was the last time I've been on treatment. I'm grateful and I'm blessed to be able to say that. I'm also not a fan of Rituxan either, but I started to tell myself it's vitamin R. Vitamin R is going to make sure I feel better and do what it needs to do for me. I can honestly tell you that for me, and this is going to sound crazy, but if I had to do it again, I would, because this journey has really taught me so much about myself, and so it's so much about others and how I can help others through their toughest time.
Yeah. So what side effects have you had with Rituxan?
Rituxan, my biggest thing is just, I think I'm allergic to it, if I'm gonna be honest. Cause like every time I would do something, my throat would feel like it's just closing up. And I'm just like, what is happening? And then that's when they come running with the Benadryl. And now it's relieving itself. I haven't really had any other side effects. And I'm wondering if it's because it's immunotherapy. But that's been just my biggest thing, just having my throat feel like it's closing, which is definitely not a fun thing either. I'm over there trying not to panic and I'm pressing the button like, hey, somebody get in here. You're not moving fast enough. And then they come with the Benadryl and now I'm just slobbering and sleeping like a baby. That was probably the only side effect that I had.
So with the RCHOP, the biggest ones then that you still can have were the bleeding gums and then the neuropathy.
Yes, that's been one of the biggest things that I deal with. Again, it's just a battle scar. We went through a war and now we know we have these battle scars.
Yeah. Just to go through the timeline a little bit. So in 2016, you started with RCHOP, and then it sounds like you went into more of a watch and wait period, and then had Rituxan when symptoms came back in 2021. And then since then, you've been back on a watch and wait or active monitoring.
Yes, that's exactly how it has been. The way my doctor explained to me is that, well, first, I must say that I've had 8 different oncologists. I'm a strong believer in being a patient advocate. If I didn't feel comfortable, if I felt like you were sugarcoating things, or if I didn't feel like I could trust what you were saying, I would leave and I would go somewhere else. I finally found a doctor that explained everything to me. And the way he explained it was, Rashad, this is a marathon, not a sprint. And with follicular lymphoma, because it's such a slow growing cancer, we want to make sure that we're not eliminating our options. We want to make sure that we're able to have something where your body doesn't get adjusted to the treatment. Once he explained that to me, it changed my perspective, because initially when I was first diagnosed, my thought was, oh, I got to hurry up and do this so I can beat this. Now my thought is, okay, hey, how do I balance this and also still give me a chance for the future?
Yeah, definitely. I'm really glad that you mentioned being an advocate for yourself as the patient. We talk a lot on this podcast about shared decision making. So making that treatment decision with your doctor and finding the right thing for you rather than just being told that this is what you're going to do. And it sounds like that's very much what you've done, is you've been a part of your own treatment plan and made sure that you're doing the right thing for you.
Yes, 100%.
So, we've heard from many patients with chronic blood cancers that watch and wait or active monitoring can be emotionally challenging, almost like they're just waiting for the other shoe to drop. You've now had a couple periods of watch and wait. What has that been like for you emotionally?
So starting off, and this is going to sound crazy when I say this, but I used to get jealous. I would get jealous when I was in the cancer centers because I would see so many people get to ring the bell. And I really had to accept the fact that I wouldn't get the chance to ring the bell. And I think that's the
Yeah.
toughest part. And so I struggle with that. And so when I started telling myself, I had to change my mindset to say, you know what? Hey, let's just get to 3 months. Okay, the next time we go to the doctor, let's go to 6 months. Okay, the next time we go, let's make it 9 and let's make it to a year. And so I started finding different challenges. And although I may never get to ring the bell, I now have another milestones that I'm aiming for. I recently just reached a year. So now my next goal is for them to say, hey, see you in 5 years. Now I'm slowly just trying to challenge myself. But I had to allow myself to feel that emotion of, man, I'm happy for those that get to ring the bell, but that's not my journey. And I'm okay with that now. Now I'm saying, okay, hey, during my race, during my marathon, what am I going to do? How am I going to keep myself motivated? And so that's kind of what led me to become a speaker. And this what leads me to live my life the way I live my life now.
I love that. You mentioned now you have your 1 year between your visits with your oncologist. So where are you at right now with your care? Is this still just in active monitoring situation?
Yes, yes. So I'm still in active monitoring. It's one of those things they always tell me, Rashad, if you feel anything different, don't hesitate to reach out to us. So I'm very good about checking myself. And then I'm also understanding like
Mhm.
sometimes I may panic if I see a night sweat. I'm going to say it's some type of form of PTSD, right? Because I wake up and I'm like, oh, I had a night sweat. And then I tell myself, but you did just eat a Snickers bar before you went to bed. So maybe that was your fault. I don't think that was a cancer related. And so I started to really make sure that I'm doing my part 100%. I started telling myself, hey, at the 7 o'clock, no more candy or nothing sweet. That way I can listen to my body as my body is telling me, hey, what is going on?
That's some really good advice, actually, if you're thinking that you might have a symptom of cancer and really removing those things that could cause that symptom and then seeing if you still have it. I think that's really good advice for patients that constantly worry about these new symptoms coming up to really take a step back and look at why is this happening? Is this cancer coming back? Or is this something else like eating a candy bar too late at night?
Yes, 100%. Here's why I say that. It's all about remaining in control over your life and knowing what are you doing. I want you to know if you're a patient listening to this, you are a part of the team. Your doctor's a part of your team, your nurses, everybody's a part of the team, but you are a part of the team as well. And we have a role we must play in order to make sure that we're doing our part.
Yeah, definitely. So we've now talked a few times about you being a motivational speaker. So you and I actually met at CancerCon, which is an annual young adult cancer conference presented by Stupid Cancer. And this was back in August. And you gave this incredible keynote speech to your fellow young adults with cancer. How did you become a motivational speaker?
I always smile about this, and I'm gonna try not to get emotional either because I don't want to cry on air like this. But after I finished my cycle of RCHOP back in 2016, I had a principal at the time that reached out to me and said, hey, Rashad, would you like to come back home and speak to our staff? You've been through this trial and tribulation, but you got through it. Can you come back and speak? And at that time, I'm like, well, all right, I don't know what to talk about, but I'll be there. And his name was Matt. And he gave me my first opportunity to speak. And I realized I saw everybody crying and hugging each other. And I was like, oh, okay, we got something here. And so from there, after that one event, more people started reaching out to me. Hey, can you come speak? And I'm like, okay, could this be a job one day? As I continued to grow, I started to learn that it could be. And so Matt, he's no longer with us. He actually was diagnosed with cancer about 3 years ago and ended up passing. And the reason why I say it gets so emotional is because he always said, Rashad, you're the best speaker I ever heard. When he was diagnosed, I was able to be there for him. Being there for him was almost like, I won't let you down. And so now I have so much more to
Yeah.
not only live for, but I have to make my dreams a reality now. It's because I know he has the best seat in the house. Acknowledging what I had to go through, I realized that maybe this is not just for me. Maybe the lessons that I went through in life, I could use them to teach others. I can use them to help people figure out what to do with their lives now. Because when you get told you have cancer, that part of you is broken and you now have to learn how to use that again. And I don't think we acknowledge that enough, that cancer changes your life and nobody tells you what to do to get back to that normal or what's the new normal. Now I take pride in being an individual that can show you, hey, this is what I did to change my life and become a speaker. Let me help you use your ingredients to become whatever you desire to be. Ever since then, I've been blessed to travel the country, and I can't wait to say I travel the world and motivate and inspire people, because it's something I truly love to do. And it helps me cope with my own diagnosis, because now I know I didn't get diagnosed because I did anything bad. It wasn't punishment. It was really just something for me to use to connect with others and help others grow. And I always say, you may not be living with cancer, but there's something cancerous in your life, whether it's addiction, whether it's low self-esteem. And so now I'm really on a mission to teach people not to burn their cake and really have fun with it, because we don't talk enough about adversity. We don't talk about the bad stuff. And I think when we talk about the bad, we can make it better. It could taste better, it looks better, and we understand why we had to go through what we had to go through.
I love that you used your own diagnosis and your own struggles to become a motivational speaker and talk to others. Now, you mentioned the cake. So one really cool thing I heard in your keynote speech was about your cake methodology, which you describe as a unique approach to embrace life's challenges and turn the heat of adversity into sweet success. And then all of this with that great tagline, "Don't burn the cake." Could you tell us all about that?
Yes, ma'am. So believe it or not, cake was one of those things that I grew up watching my great grandma bake a cake, and I saw so many life lessons. I'm a big fan of cake as well. Cheesecake is my favorite. And as I just thought about everything, I realized there's a process that you have to go through to bake a cake. And most people just see the cake, but I fell in love with the process. And there's a couple of times where, and I know I shared this story on stage, where I ate cinnamon by itself and I realized it was bitter. But then the right chef or baker can put the right ingredients to it and it makes it better. I wanted to show people how to take the ingredients that life has given them and teach them how to make their cake. And so cake became a 4-step methodology to where if you follow these steps through your toughest times, you're going to overcome any adverse situation, which is C, continue to learn, A, always love yourself, K, know your worth, and E, enjoy your life. And I always focus on the C first, because when trials and tribulations come our way, this is an opportunity to learn something new about ourselves. And we have to be comfortable allowing ourselves to let go of the things that we're used to so we can grow and we can expand. And so that's what cake stems from. It's really almost like a call to action. Every day we should be learning about ourselves. Every day we should be loving ourselves and knowing our worth and enjoying life. And that's what cancer taught me. And so now I use those lessons from cancer to turn into cake, because everybody loves cake.
Yeah.
And so now I'm here to just serve and really just help make a difference.
I love that. So what does the "don't burn the cake" mean?
So don't burn your cake means, under any circumstances, do not overlook your process. So when you're baking a cake, you're going to have your basics, your butter, your flour, your sugar. You're going to have to mix everything together. You're going to have to wait till the oven is preheated. There's steps you have to go through. And so many times when we go through things in life, we immediately panic and we're like, oh my goodness, I don't want to go through this anymore. I'm done. And at that moment, you just burnt your cake. At that moment, you missed out on your opportunity of creating something great. When I tell people don't burn your cake, what I'm really saying is trust the process, embrace it. It's not fun right now, but there's something beautiful that's going to come out of it, because the right baker knows, hey, that cake has been in the oven for 45 minutes. Let me take it out. Let me let it rest, and then I can decorate it, put the icing on. And now I make a mental note, because if it tastes good, I now know I have a perfect solution. And so now I'm going to recreate that. So anytime I go through something, I can say, hey, I went through cancer and this is how I got through it. So I'm going to get through this situation too. I just got to figure out what ingredients do I put together, but I'm not doing it from scratch now, because I now have a recipe. And I just want people to recognize that everything is going to work out for you. You just got to be willing to say, hey, don't burn my cake. All right. So let me make sure I see the positive in this and not just the negative. Because if I focus on the cinnamon, the bitter moment, I'm going to always be bitter. But if I allow myself to say, hey, how do I use this? I can make it better.
So when we're looking at all the different ingredients that we have, so pieces of our life, right? And then the heat of adversity comes in, and that is a cancer diagnosis or some serious illness. But then we can utilize all that. We can put it all together and make something really good.
Yes. You can't bake a cake in a cold oven.
True.
You really can't. And so heat is meant to help you bring all these things together. And so these ingredients are life moments, and they're not always bad. Sometimes they're great. It could be graduating from college. It could be getting married. It could be so many great things. And now you just have to learn how to use those things in order to really help you grow. One thing I always tell people is that if I want a slice of cake, I'm going to a bakery just to get a slice. But if I want to bake a cake, I'm going to share it with others. So your life story is meant to be shared with others so they can say, hey, such and such got through this. Maybe I can get through my situation. And that's the thing I love about cake as well. It's meant to serve. It's meant to show people, hey, if I got through this, you can too.
Yeah, and that's why we have the podcast and why we have support groups and events like CancerCon. So we can hear these stories from other people, stories that we relate to and that we identify with, and can see how somebody has gone through it and hopefully get through it ourselves and live a good life after all of that, or through it, like you are doing with follicular lymphoma.
Yes, ma'am.
So our final question today, Rashad, on our patient podcast homepage, we have a quote that says, after diagnosis comes hope. What advice would you give to patients and caregivers to give them hope after a diagnosis?
I think the first advice I would say is allow yourself to feel. I remember when I first got my diagnosis, it was like I wasn't feeling, I was just numb. And I discovered that just because I don't feel it doesn't mean I'm healing from it. It was a moment where I had just switched oncologists and I was going to Georgia to see another oncologist. And she was actually the first one that told me that follicular lymphoma would be something I would live with for the rest of my life.
Mm-hmm.
And when she said it, it's almost like a part of me was like I was looking at my body sitting down, just like, what is really going on? But I think allowing myself to feel is what allowed me to say, you know what? Okay. Yes, they told me this diagnosis. Yes, this is my new norm. But what am I going to do with it now? That would be my biggest advice, is to allow yourself to feel, so then you can learn how to use it. You can learn how to say, okay, hey, this is the cancer diagnosis I got to deal with. Okay. How do I use this to still accomplish my dream? How do I use this to become a better person? How do I use this to make sure that I enjoy life every single day? And so that would be my biggest advice, is to allow yourself to feel. The more we run from it, the more it chases us. But when we learn to just sit back and embrace it and know that we're not alone, we can find the right people and be connected to those that are here to help us run our race, such as LLS. They're here to help us get through the marathon. They're here to help us get through the sprint. And they genuinely care about us as people. And so that's why I said, once you know what you feel, you now know how to heal. And I'm going to leave it at that note. I like that. Once you learn how to feel, you now know how to heal.
I love that. That is a really great phrase. Did you just make that up?
Yeah, off the top of my head.
That's wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Rashad, for coming on and talking to us today all about your diagnosis, and then all these amazing things that you have done for yourself and to motivate others to get through cancer and to navigate cancer and hopefully live an enjoyable life, even if you're still dealing with treatment or on active monitoring. So we really appreciate you joining us today, sharing all about the CA.K.E methodology. That was awesome. Thank you again.
Thank you. I truly enjoyed just being able to have this moment to talk with you. And I just had one final thought that I wanted to share.
Yeah.
I take pride in making sure that when people hear me, they now have someone that they can say, hey, he got through it. I can go do it too. And so just having this moment and knowing I met you at CancerCon is one of those moments that I get emotional, because I know it's not just me now, that I have a whole family across this world and we're going to do it together. So if you're listening to this right now, don't give up on your dreams. Yes, this ingredient may have changed the way you got to get to your dreams, but let's adjust, adapt, and let's live our best life. And most importantly, don't burn your cake.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Rashad.
Thank you.
And thank you to everyone listening today. The Bloodline with LLS is one part of the mission of the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society to improve the quality of lives of patients and their families. Did you know that you can get more involved with the Bloodline podcast? Be sure to check out our subscriber lounge, where you can gain access to exclusive content, discuss episodes with other listeners, make suggestions for future topics, or share your story to potentially be featured as a future guest. You will also receive an email notification for each new episode. Join for free today at thebloodline.org/subscriber lounge. In addition to the lounge, we could use your feedback to help us continue to provide engaging content for all people affected by cancer. We would like to ask you to complete a brief survey that can be found in the show notes or at thebloodline.org. This is your opportunity to provide feedback and suggested topics that will help so many people. We would also like to know about you and how we can serve you better. The survey is completely anonymous and no identifying information will be taken. However, if you would like to contact LLS staff, please email thebloodline@lls.org. We hope this podcast helped you today. Stay tuned for more information on the resources that LLS has for you or your loved ones who have been affected by cancer. Have you or a loved one been affected by blood cancer? LLS has many resources available to you: financial support, peer-to-peer connection, nutritional support, and more. We encourage patients and caregivers to contact our information specialists at 1-800-955-4572 or go to lls.org/patient support. You can find more information on follicular lymphoma at lls.org/lymphoma. These links and more will be found in the show notes or at thebloodline.org. Thank you again for listening. Be sure to subscribe to The Bloodline so you don't miss an episode. We look forward to having you join us next time.
Thanks for listening to The Bloodline with LLS. We can be found on iTunes and other great podcatchers. You can subscribe at www.thebloodline.org. Be sure to check out our archive section on our website for previous podcasts. Be sure to rate and review us on iTunes. Keep up with LLS by following us on Twitter at LLSUSA and Facebook at the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. Until next time.